Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. Yeah. Let's have a conversation. Oh, yeah. Look. Yeah. Hey. Let's have a conversation. Woo. Pick up some gems, life is all you make. Go. We keep it real, we don't talk to fake. Tell them hottest talk show on the net, coming for all the mates. Let's have a conversation. Woo. Pick up some gems, life is all you make. Go. We keep it real, we don't talk to fake. Tell them hottest talk show on the net, coming for all the mates. Let's have a conversation. Yeah. Let's have a conversation. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone. This is Michelle Biggs, CEO of My Best Everyday Coaching and Consulting, and the host of Real Conversations with Michelle. I am just going to do a real quick check. I see some people coming on. And if you are viewing this from my personal page, you should be able to go to the event page and click the video there. And you can also watch this from my website, www.mybesteveryday.com/video podcast. So I'm just going to give it a couple minutes for everybody to get on, because StreamYard has done something just a little bit different this go round. But like I said, hopefully everybody can see the video. So we'll give it a couple of minutes. This is such an important topic. You all, I was going to focus on another topic with youth and decided to switch it up, not realizing that there were going to be some things happening in this season that also caused us all to take note of the fact that this is not a good time for everybody this time of year. And that there are also a lot of folks out there who are hiding their pain. I think if any of you watched the news, you would have seen the news about Mr. Stephen Bost, aka Twitch, who was on Ellen DeGeneres. And a lot of people just saw how happy he appeared to be on social media platforms, not realizing there was a lot of pain behind all of that. And I have joining me for this very important topic, a licensed therapist. I'm going to have him come on. For those of you who are new to my platform, I am a master certified life coach, as well as an associate certified coach through the International Coaching Federation. And I leverage this platform to talk about a lot of different life topics with the goal that something you hear, you'll be able to apply in a positive way to your life, even in support of someone else. So tonight's topic, beating the holiday blues, like I said, it's just a timely topic, just knowing that this could be a very depressing time for people. So I'm going to bring on my guest and I will have him introduce himself, Mr. Nathaniel Turner. Hey, Nathaniel.
Hey, Michelle. It's great to be back.
How are you? Yes.
I'm doing well.
Good. Tell folks about yourself, Nathaniel.
Yeah, so my name is Nathaniel Turner. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist located in the state of New York. I am also an advocate for the pursuit of Christ-centered models of holistic wellness. And knock on wood, in 2023, I will be a private practice owner as well.
Yeah, so thank you. And Nathaniel was a guest on a live stream, a video podcast I did, which was managing how to deal with, I'm going to say tainted people, because you definitely helped me to reframe that topic. I said toxic people, and you're like, I like to reframe this and say tainted people, but it definitely did help me reframe how I think about that topic. So thank you for joining me. I know you are a very busy man, especially we're gonna pray for you. We're gonna get your business launched next year, your private practice. So
Thank you so much.
let's talk about this period, Nathaniel, because like I said, I was doing some research, and this is a topic that I did cover probably about 2 years ago. And I know that this time of year, they call it seasonal depression. I've also heard the term seasonal affective disorder. So explain what that is.
Yeah. So seasonal affective disorder and seasonal depression, people kind of use them interchangeably. But let me just put it this way. Seasonal affective disorder, it's a type of mood disorder that is specifically associated with the changing seasons. So it's usually beginning in the fall and then persisting throughout the winter. In some rare cases, it can start in the spring and actually persist throughout the summer. But diagnostically, it's identical to major depressive disorder, but it has a particular identifier, which is that it's coming on specifically as a result of the change of the seasons. So, I mean, sometimes when we talk about like the seasonal blues, right, I think that we can use them interchangeably. What we're actually talking about is like we're experiencing depressive symptoms that have more to do with like psychological or social variables, whatever's going on with our family, whatever's going on with work. And it just so happens that these things become like they're elevated, right? They're highlighted more so in the holiday season. And so we kind of like we say, okay, so it's that's sad, right? That's seasonal affective disorder. But in actuality, seasonal affective disorder is something that's a lot more like it's biological almost. It has something to do with the changing of the seasons specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that
Yeah.
explanation. What are signs that we should look for or watch out for during
Yeah.
this period? People who are maybe going through.
Yeah. So again, because of the fact that diagnostically it is major depressive disorder, really what you should be doing is you should be looking at some mood symptoms or some changes that coincide with changing seasons, right? But also specifically just season symptoms that you would experience if you were just experiencing depression, right? So that might be feelings of listlessness, which is basically like sadness or just like, decreased motivation. And that's sadness like nearly every day, all day, right? So
Mm.
kind of like there's a pattern of this, right? Loss of interest in previously enjoyable things. So if there's something that you like to do, but then all of a sudden you find that you don't have an interest in doing it anymore, that might be an indicator that there's a shift that's happening, right? Having low energy or just being generally sluggish, any disordered eating or sleeping. That's a really major one. Like weight fluctuations can also go along with that, difficulty concentrating or focusing on our work, or just like a general sense of like hopelessness, right? Hopelessness, guilt, and of course, with what you were saying about Twitch, suicidal thoughts.
Mm. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
definitely the extreme, right?
hmm hmm
Um, let's talk about some things that can contribute to blues during this time, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I know just grief, right? Someone could have recently passed away, or it's
Yeah.
just, Christmas, this holiday time just could be a favorite season of someone who you may have lost.
hmm
Um, divorce, if you've gone through divorce or going through divorce,
Yeah.
singleness, overspending, and people don't think sometimes we get into this space, right? It's the holiday season, everybody's out there
Yeah.
shopping, and we could be overextending ourselves.
They
And then
credit
there's
rich, but they cash poor.
and then job loss. So let's talk
hmm
about each of those in terms
Yeah.
of how can someone combat it if you're going through these things that I just mentioned.
Yeah. Well, so having a conversation, right? Let's try and break it down like one by one, because again,
Yeah.
I think that a lot of these things that you've expressed, they all flow together in the ways that we address them. They all kind of flow together. Now, I can be like very like clinical heavy in this, and I think that that's probably not what people would benefit from,
Yeah.
especially
Yes.
if they're experiencing something like this. But then, I'm gonna need your help if I'm gonna make it not clinical. So,
Yeah.
let's see if
Yeah.
we can let's see if we can slow that process down a little bit.
Okay.
So, like starting with grief, right? People that have so when it's the holidays, just in general, there's something called like an anniversary reaction, right? Anniversary reactions are they're triggers that have to do with particular anniversaries, right? So it could be somebody's birthday, it could be times during the year where generally people are supposed to be gathering, right? Such as Thanksgiving, such as Christmas, such as the New Year's. It just so happens that these three big holidays that are really known for like family family and community gatherings all coincide within the last 2 months of the year when people are already tired, they're already worn down, right? They've already kind of like been put through the paces of life. And then on top of that, these holidays may come up, and for them, refilling may be being in community. It may mean being in family with other people, and then it just so happens that when they think about it, it's like, oh, but that there's a family member or there's a person that is no longer, with me. And the grief doesn't just have to come from somebody that has passed away. The grief can also just come from a relationship that you
Yes.
no longer have. I can think about where I was last year and where I am this year, right? A lot can happen in just 1 year, right? Just in regard to like people that you're in close contact with, spaces that you may be making your way through. And so, I think that when it comes to grief, it's necessary to kind of like allow yourself to slow down and feel it,
Mm.
right? I think that we can easily get into this space where it's just like, we just got to keep on going. We just got to bang it out. We got to finish the year strong, right? When in actuality, oh, are we back?
Yeah,
I'm
we
sorry.
back. No, it's
Okay.
okay.
Okay. When in actuality, like finishing the year strong may not be what people need to do. Maybe people just need to give themselves the grace to just finish the year.
Yeah,
Like just
yeah,
make it to the new year. Give themselves an opportunity to rest. And start with a fresh chance and a fresh perspective. In January, maybe that's the actual thing that people need to be able to do. And the grieving process is sort of just like an allowance or a release, or just to allow themselves to be.
yeah, yeah. And I know several people in my circle have lost people, and this is their first holiday. I know I recently lost a sorority sister and lost a mentor.
Mm,
And
my
again,
condolences.
when you're thinking about again times where you may have seen someone or not have seen them and thinking you're going to see them, it could create this helplessness and hopelessness, during this season. So grief for sure is one of those things that people are dealing with during the holiday time. Divorce. What would you say in those
Hmm.
situations? Someone who's dealing with that, and particularly if you have kids,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that they should be
Mhm.
thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, divorce is loss as well, but it's a different type of loss, right? We're losing and we're grieving a certain idea, maybe certain potential that we held, certain hope for a future that's no longer there. And so there's kind of like this unlearning and relearning process that's taking place, where you have to allow yourself to unlearn, right, the way that your life used to be, so that you can learn the way that your life is going to be right now. And I've seen different people um, you know, go through that process differently, especially as it pertains to, like, them having children, because children have their own feelings about it. They may have their own ways of coping. But it's something that we had talked about when it comes to like how do we interact with children. In the last time that I was on, and we had that conversation about toxicity slash taintedness, we were talking about modeling, right?
Right.
And so, sometimes, um, you know, you have caregivers that are going through this schism of the family unit, and they're grieving, but at the same time, there's this pressure on them to be strong for their children, when in actuality, like, their resources are tapped, right? They
Mm.
need to be able to sort of like, slow down and grieve that process too, so that they are not quote unquote bleeding over other people, like bleeding over their children. They need to be able to tend to their own wounds. And so it's important, I would say, not to isolate, but to rely on community.
Mm.
Rely on your family, right? Rely on, if you have siblings, if you have cousins, go and see them during the holidays, spend some time with them. Or if you need to spend time for yourself because you're grieving the loss of a relationship or of a marriage, maybe you send your children, right, to stay with their cousins or stay with family members for a period of time, and you give yourself a timeout. You give yourself the ability to mourn that loss in the way that you need to mourn that loss.
Hmm. Can you talk a little bit about kids? Are there different signs to watch out for kids if you have a child and they
Yeah.
themselves may be dealing with a loss, right? Whether it be grief or in a situation of divorce.
Yeah. So I mean, developmentally, where kids are, they're when they're going through things, they're going to present differently. I've worked in child welfare for the past 3 years now, and the thing that makes like working with kids difficult sometimes is that they're when one of their depressive symptoms, like depressive symptoms for kids are not the same. They're not all the same as depressive symptoms for adults, right? Depressive symptoms for
Hmm.
kids can actually manifest as like irritation or anger, right? And so
Mm.
if all of a sudden you have kids that are becoming like just very argumentative, and just it's difficult for you to kind of like get a word in edgewise, and you feel like the relationship is fraying. It may be appropriate to kind of just do like a check-in with them, right? Maybe not a direct type of check-in with them, but like maybe leaving them a note saying, I want to get some food, later on, and maybe we can just like watch a movie and we can talk or something like that, and find kind of like a way for a soft entry so that you can have some of those conversations. And I would say always for parents, it's really important to model whatever behavior you're looking for from your children. If
Hmm.
parents are not willing to go first into that space, right, and be vulnerable, right, if the only thing that parents are concerned about is exercising strength, right, and putting on a good show, then all you're showing for your kids is that this is the only way that's appropriate for me to show these emotions that I'm experiencing, right? But when
Mm.
you give yourself permission to be vulnerable, you're also giving your kids permission to be vulnerable and have conversations with them that may actually need to be had.
Mm. Good stuff. Thank you for that.
Hmm.
Um, you know, time of the year. Let's talk about singles. I don't know if you have anything different to say for those who are in their season of singleness. And
Yeah.
and I know particularly during this time of year, you think about New Year's. Everybody think about, oh, I need to be with someone I love, bringing in the new year, all that other stuff.
Uh-huh.
What would you say in terms of someone who is in this season of singleness? What feedback would you
Yeah.
give? Hmm.
I would say comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm.
We're in a world where we have an abundance of access. You had spoken to, and things aren't always what they seem. I think things
Hmm.
are rarely what they seem. You again, like circling back around to Twitch, a lot of the news reports they spoke to, like just how sudden learning of the completion of his suicide was, because people did not really have, like, on social media, it looked a certain type of way, right?
Right.
And so like you can apply that really to anything. People are going on social media, like we're inundated with all sorts of media that really sort of like tries to program us into believing that we're supposed to present a certain way, we're supposed to be a certain way, and if it doesn't look this certain way, then it's wrong, right? Or there's something
Mm.
wrong with us, right? So, but that's not always the case, right? People may be putting up a good show for whatever reason, right, on social media, but they may be suffering inwardly. People in relationships, that can go for them as well. We go on Facebook, we go on Instagram, and we see, the happy family pictures, and everybody's wearing the same, you know what I'm saying?
Pajamas. Yeah.
The
The
same
PJ, the
pajamas,
PJ,
and
the PJ
you know what I'm
pictures. Yeah.
saying? The same pajamas, and they got the stocking stuffers behind them, and the fires roaring and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, it may very well be that is a depiction of the day to day for that family. And it
Right.
also very well may be that once that picture gets flipped and the photographer leaves and they go back home, they get to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have no idea. So if you're looking at something like that and you're saying it's supposed to be this way, why isn't it this way for me? Then
Right.
you're just gonna start ruminating on all of the things that you don't have, which is gonna make it that much more difficult to focus on all of the blessings that you do.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, Job loss. Um,
Mm,
this time of year, uh, depending on your employer, I know we tend to, where I
hmm
am, once we get close to the holidays, if there was even thought of letting someone go, we tend to delay it until the new year because we know that this is the time of
mm,
year. You add that on to other things that people are dealing with, it can be tough. So what would you
hmm
say to someone who is in that state where they're, dealing
mm.
with job loss? Um, what should they be thinking about? How should they be thinking about this period right now?
Um, this is I say this first as a disclaimer. This is not my area of special, like job
Mhm.
law is not my area of specialty, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
but I would follow suit with just this theme of endings and new beginnings, right?
Yes.
If you've lost your job, um, then take some time right now to lick your wounds, so to speak, right? Allow yourself to be sad. Allow yourself to grieve the loss of that job and to come into a state of reconciliation with all of what that means for you, right? And really just allow yourself to experience that fully, right?
Yeah.
Do that and do it in a healthy way. Don't beat yourself up about it, you know but definitely do mourn the fact that this is loss of income, right? This is loss of a paycheck. Depending on the way that it happened, there may be some feelings of embarrassment or shame or
Mhm.
maybe even guilt that are associated with it. It's necessary to accept those things and start to do the work of processing through them, right? Hopefully with people that you know and that you love and people that know and that love you who can speak into you, right?
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
as you transition into the new year, you can have a new perspective and say, this is not the end. This is the end of one season, right? And where one door is closing, there's going to be another door that's going to open up. And my focus now is going to be towards locating and walking through that open door.
Yeah, and I'll just, my perspective around this, having worked in HR for 34 years,
Uh-huh.
it's yes, it's always going to be it's a tough time, right?
Yeah.
Period. But what I will say, just knowing people who have gone through job loss, there are things will get better. And to your point, sometimes you
hmm
think um that is not, but I've seen people transition and find much better things, right?
Uh-huh.
So this is a time to reflect and think about what it is that you want and what your next chapter will be, right? And figuring out a way how
Yeah.
you can control that for yourself,
Yeah.
right? But
When you
leveraging this time of year to be reflective, I think is very
uh-huh.
important.
You
Mhm.
saying that is like it's bringing something to mind. I was just trying to hold on to it because stuff tends to like go in and out really quickly these days. I'm
No,
trying
no,
to
just a
carry so much.
conversation.
Uh,
Mhm.
no, yeah, for sure. So some depending on your industry, um, I think that there's potential for being locked into a space where because you are only focused on what is right in front of you, you're focused on the deadline, you're focused on meeting the expectation. You don't actually have a real like you don't have enough margin, right, to see what else is out there next to you. So it's
Mhm.
difficult for you to take inventory. So, I
Yes.
mean, I think that there are sometimes, again, this is not speaking from a place where this is my specialty, but just the way that I've transitioned through my career so far is that there are sort of like natural breaks for you to take inventory. And when you have those natural breaks to take inventory, sometimes it's good to check in with somebody, right? And that could be around, a promotion, that could be around a new certification, the completion of a degree, the beginning or graduation from some sort of training program. I think that these are like natural times for us to source support from our network, right? If you have a
Absolutely.
mentor, you have somebody who you haven't spoken to in a while, and maybe time to text them and see if you could set up some coffee, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying, or see if you could set up a
absolutely.
Zoom date or something like that.
Absolutely.
And maybe time for you to go through your resume or your LinkedIn page or whatever and tighten that up real quick. It may be time for you to add in all of those things onto your CV that you just been you've been letting
It
lag for a
is.
long time, right?
It
It may
is.
just be time for you to do that. And once you do that, then you have a clearer understanding of, okay, well, there's actually a lot more available to me than I thought.
It is. And I'll tell you, and this is one of the reasons I became a coach myself, because
Hmm.
what I do find is a lot of times people do get stuck, whether job loss is happening this time of year or any time in the year. It is a time to step back and reevaluate, right? And a lot of times what people realize is that there's a lot more that they can do than they think, and you
Yeah.
just need that space. We're always in this space of moving and running when we're at work, right?
Hmm.
And do not really have that space to really sit back and reflect. And this is where
Yeah.
I will say a coach will be helpful if you're in this
Hmm.
space. So I
Hmm.
think most of my followers know I am a coach. So, if you're in that space, definitely reach out to me and let's talk about that. Because like I said, what I find is um, when people have that space to talk and really plan, they'll find that they'll land someone even better than where they were, right?
Yeah.
But they don't have the time and space, the headspace to think. Now you have that
Hmm.
time to sit back and
Yeah.
think. And quite
Yeah.
frankly, this time of the year, um, harder to find something. So you're in this space where you can start planning so that come January, you can really put yourself out there to look and have a clear head. So,
Hmm.
but thank you for your perspective from a therapist standpoint.
Yeah.
Um, so we talked a little bit about children. How about those of us with parents, elderly parents, right?
Hmm.
What would you say in terms of just watch outs for parents, or say the elderly who may be in that space? I would assume some of the things we might have to watch out for elderly could be a little different than when you're talking about children.
Yeah. Um, admittedly, I've worked with a couple of clients before who had some, I guess we'll say, like approaching end of life dilemmas that they were trying to work through as it pertained to care for their aging and infirm parents. And a
Mm,
lot of the difficulties that they were running into was sort of like this role reversal, right?
yes,
Where
yes.
for the majority of their life, their parent had been the parent and they'd been the child. And even as they transitioned through adulthood, that that dynamic um, had remained pretty rigid and inflexible. But then when their parents reach a certain age and their ability to do for themselves starts to decline, or they lose a spouse, they lose a partner, right? And then some of the supports that they had before are not supports that they have anymore. Sort of that role reversal becomes difficult to navigate because
It's huge.
the parent might still be in this place where it's just like, well, I want to do like this is the way that it's supposed to be done, like almost like an obstinance, right?
Yeah,
And for
yeah.
the child who also is now an adult caregiver, it's like, well, I'm trying to navigate this dynamic with my parent that I may have never really like fully sussed out, and
Mhm,
now
mhm.
I'm responsible for their care. And we have difficulty discussing boundaries, like what do boundaries look like, or I have difficulty maintaining boundaries, right? I may have to take care of my elderly or infirm parent. But then I also have a spouse. I also have children of my own. I also have job responsibilities that limit the amount of resources and time and energy that I can pour in. Or I might have other siblings, right, or other members of the family that may also be able to assist, but they're not doing their part, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's not
Mm-hmm.
even to start talking about, like, legal documentation as it pertains to houses and mortgages and wills, and all of them, the medical paperwork that goes with that. So I mean, it can definitely be very overwhelming, but again, I think that there's a lot of importance about like sourcing support from your community.
Yeah.
Something that has been like really, really critical for me this year to learn is that the things that I don't know how to do, that I don't do well, I need other people to help me with.
Yeah.
I am not an island. I'm not an
Yeah.
island, and I'm not serving anybody by pretending that I am.
Yeah. And that caring for caregivers is definitely real. And as I think as caregivers, you have to make sure you're taking care of yourself
Hmm.
um as well. For sure. Let's
Yeah.
talk about, as friends, what can we do to be more supportive? Because I know there have been
Mm.
times when, and I've heard it because I've been in places where I've been in a place of just feeling like being being alone, feeling lonely during the season.
Yeah.
So I've been there, right? And I know a lot of times what people will say is, "Oh, everything will be okay." Right? Or call me if
Mm.
you need something.
Mm.
And there is this sense of pride that people have, who may
Hmm.
be in this space where they may not want to call, right? Because they don't want to
Yeah.
be a burden. And I think even hearing the story about Twitch, you hear people say a lot of times people don't want to be a burden to anyone. So what advice would you give to family members, friends, in terms of just how they manage in this situation, right? When they know
Yeah.
someone may be in this state.
Yeah. I think that it's I'm going to come at this from a different angle. I think that
Okay.
it's a matter of integrity.
Mm,
Um, if it's a matter of integrity, and I'm going to start with the friend, not with the person that needs the help. It's a
yeah.
matter of integrity for the friend, because you know when you are just giving sentiment. Because we've all been there, right? Let's be
Yes.
clear. When you're just giving sentiment. When you're just giving lip service. When you're just kind of going through the motions of, this is what a friend says. This is what a friend, like, oh, we'll talk. Like, we'll talk. Yeah, we haven't connected in a long time. Yeah, we'll get around to doing that, right? When it is that you're just giving lip service, right? Hold yourself accountable. If this is somebody that you are saying that you care about, if this is a relationship that you value, go the extra step, right? Go the extra step. Put it down on the calendar. Look, my Google Calendar saves my life. One of my
Mhm.
mentors, it was her birthday today. She helped me to get my license. She supervised me in graduate school, and I was like, look, I'm gonna put your birthday on my phone, and the very least I can do every year is say happy birthday and see how you doing, right? And we
Yes.
started talking.
Yes.
She said, oh, we still gotta connect. I said, you know what? Put it on my calendar right now. I said,
Right.
let's take the 5 minutes, because that's really all it takes. Let's take the
It
five
does.
minutes.
It does.
Let's take the 5 minutes. I have your email address. I have your number. Let's put it on the calendar. Let's make it real, right? Let's make
Yeah.
it real,
Yeah.
because you never know. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't want
No,
to.
I was going to say I do the same thing, Nathaniel. And the other
Uh-huh.
thing that I've done over the years is when I am thinking about someone, I call
Mm,
them right then and
yes.
there. I
I'm
just
getting better
do.
at that. I'm
Yeah,
getting
I just
better at that.
do, because otherwise what I'll do is you'll put it off.
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely will reach out to people as they're on my
Uh-huh.
mind.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a reason behind that too. in terms of people just coming up in your space. But this
Yeah.
thing about, call me if you need me and all this other stuff, I think we just have to
Yeah.
get past the fact that some people are just not going to do that,
They're
right?
not gonna do it.
They don't
And
want to show
that
their
becomes the out.
vulnerability.
And that
Yes.
becomes the out for us, right? Which is why I said like we got to really start with integrity, right? It becomes the out for us. Now, on the flip side, um, part of emotion, like part of like emotional awareness, emotional maturity, emotional vulnerability, is being able to ask for the things that you need, right? So I had said before, like I have to recognize that I'm not an island. That's important for me to learn, and much more so in this past year. I'm not an island, right? There's this concept of like differentiation in therapy, right? Which is really speaking to an interdependent person, right? As opposed to an independent person. An interdependent person is a person who is able to care for themselves, right? They're a functioning adult. However, the interdependent aspect is I know that there are some things that I need help for. And so I'm either going to reach out to people that are able to assist me with it, or I'm going to do my due diligence to find people that I can call on and that I can rely on that are good in this way that I'm not, right?
Mm-hmm,
And as a
mm-hmm.
result of being able to lean on people, not only just lean on myself and sort of just like, bootstrap my way through life and like white knuckle it, I'm learning how to play well with others. I'm learning how to receive, right? Which is often a difficult thing for individuals who are high functioning. And I know that you coach executives, you coach
Yes.
people that are very high functioning. I wonder, and this is actually a question. I wonder if maybe you could speak to. Oh, wait, because we having a conversation. I
Yeah.
wonder if you could speak to like your experience with people who are very high functioning, being able to actually receive love, receive compassion, receive grace, receive help.
Yeah. It's hard. Yeah, it is hard. And I would say most of my friends will say I probably fall in that category as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I wasn't trying to
yeah.
put you on the spot,
No,
Michelle.
no, no. We're having a conversation. Thanks, Nathaniel. Yeah. But it is, I think, and then don't get into the whole cultural piece of it, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
wanting people to see you sweat.
Mm,
There's so much there in that space, but we always want to show up well. And again, being vulnerable um sometimes gets translated into being weak. And we don't want anybody to
yeah.
think that we're
Oh,
weak,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard. And matter of fact,
Mm-hmm.
I remember sending a text about 2 weeks ago, and I sent it to my family. I'm like, me and my nieces and nephews, we always kind of go at them like, can you check on your aunt? Just send me just
Mm,
make sure that I'm good. And they're like, well, I see you on social media. I'm like, okay, but just because I'm on social media doesn't mean I'm not
yeah.
having a good, not having a good day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I just want to hear your voice,
Yeah.
right? But I do think those who are high functioning, we tend to go, go, go. And there's something to say about always being busy as well. Because
Speak to me.
sometimes
Okay,
that,
so you gonna
yeah,
speak to me now. Speak to me now.
yeah, because sometimes, Nathaniel, we stay busy. We constantly staying busy because we don't want to deal with other
Yeah.
stuff. So we
Yeah.
get into this space that we fill up of all of our time. So you don't have that empty space to just be and think. Because when
Mm-hmm.
you do have that space to just
Mm-hmm.
be and think,
It's hard. It's hard
it's hard.
to deal with all that stuff,
It
to
is.
face
It's
it.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard. And I
Yeah.
do feel like, when I think back at the pandemic where all of us were brought to our knees almost because here we are at home, nowhere to go, right?
Yeah.
Literally. I think a lot of us became very introspective during that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
About a lot of things because we were
A lot
forced
of
to do
things.
that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a high functioning person, to have that much quiet time can be deafening sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And put you in this space of really not really coping the way that you should be coping,
Yeah.
right? And I think I have shared, I know I've shared in my blog and on some of my social media platforms, therapy has saved me, when
Mhm.
I think about it. It had, particularly when I was going through my divorce and dealing with that for the first time during the
Mhm.
holidays and things like that, right? And
Yeah.
so I do want to talk about this next topic in terms of when should people go to therapy, right? Because
Yeah.
particularly during this time, um, the emotional piece of just the holidays and dealing with all the things we just talked about, um, there may be a time where you really do need to see a therapist, right? You don't want to be don't want to see yourself in a space like a Twitch, right? Where
Mhm.
there's that
Mhm.
hopelessness for whatever reason. So talk about, when
Yeah.
should someone reach out to a therapist?
Yeah. So
And
I want to.
I hope I answered your question too.
You did answer my question,
Okay.
and I think and your insight with that, I think, was profound, right? Particularly about the effect of the pandemic on people, with really just kind of like turning their world upside down. I think that it's nothing is all one thing, right? We look at the pandemic and we see the news, and all we see is death. We see the impact that it's had on families. We see the impact that it still has, on economies the world over, and manufacturing, and all these other type of things that are related to productivity. And also there's this extra effect that it had with giving people a chance to breathe and slow down and reconnect with themselves and reconnect with their families. In many cases, such as with mine, reconnect with God, right?
Yeah.
And really start to prioritize different things in their life. And if they didn't have something as all consuming as the pandemic, really forcing them to stop in their tracks, they wouldn't have been able to do it. How and that silence can be deafening, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can be like a loud roar. But through that silence and everything that it's trying to reveal to us, there is wellness on the other side of it.
Yes.
So just using that to segue, this last question, whenever I come on here, I do my research, and I write stuff down that I want to talk about. And I was
Yes.
surprised that when I was thinking about this last question, I had like a whole page of notes that are actually broken down in like three different sections. And I did want to actually spend a little bit of time speaking about suicidality,
Yes.
because I think that there's a part of us that feels like that's not a topic that we should touch, when in
Yes.
actuality, almost half of our population, right, some studies show almost half of our population, upwards of 40% of individuals, experience suicidal ideation at some point in their life. That's not to
Yeah.
say that they may actually attempt, but it is important to normalize the fact that if you have suicidal thoughts, or if you've ever had suicidal thoughts, you are not in any way, in a vacuum, or by yourself, or deviant in any kind of way. You're having a very human, very like almost universal experience. So I do want to talk about that, but
Yeah. And
yeah,
can I just add something there? Because
yeah,
definitely during this time of year, again, that could happen. But I did some research as well. And
uh-huh,
one of the things I found, and I'm just gonna quote this. So American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, they say that men are 4 times more likely than women to commit suicide. So that was
mm-hmm,
one. And then University of Connecticut said that suicide is on the rise for Blacks and Hispanic communities,
mm-hmm, yeah,
right?
so that as well.
So I do. So it's. I wanted to share that before you get into this
Mm-hmm,
topic, because I think they both. It's something that we have to be
yeah,
mindful of as a community, and I think going to therapy. There's a lot of stigma that's tied to it, so I
mm-hmm,
want you also, as you're talking about suicide. I don't want to mess it up. I won't use your term because I'll mess it up if I say it. But also, what I want to talk about, how do we destigmatize just going to therapy? So I'll let you talk
Uh-huh.
about that.
Yeah. So the therapy part, I want to try and simplify it as much as possible. So
Yes.
what I wrote down is therapy is useful when we or others around us begin to recognize patterns of maladaptive coping, right? So we have ways that we cope with stress in our life that they're just it's adaptive, right?
Okay.
I've been working a lot, right? I had, 4 10-hour days or 10, yeah, 10, let's say 10-hour shifts. And so the next day, I sleep in, right? Maybe like 2 or 3 hours past the time where I would normally get up. That's adaptive coping, right? I'm
Mm.
tired. I need to sleep, right? Maladaptive coping might be, I I go on like a I go on a binge of some sort, right? Like I had a really stressful week. I've had, difficult interactions with people at work or with people at my job. And so I go out, I go to a bar, I get blackout drunk, and I look for people to get in a fight with, right? That's a maladaptive
Mm.
way of coping, right? With stress that we all are confronted with, right? So I broke maladaptive coping down into 4 categories, right? Deprivation, dissociation, dysregulation, and degradation.
Mm.
Okay. And I'll try. I don't really have like an exact definition for all of these because I was just kind of like writing them down, and I'm pulling this actually from a book that I read earlier in the year called Unwanted,
Mm.
by a psychotherapist and an MDiv, Masters of Divinity, named Jay Stringer, where he was talking about how there are a lot of there are a lot of sexual behaviors sometimes that people, not just men but people in general, can engage in that are as a result of these maladaptive experiences that they're having, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so this is the way
Way of
this is the way
coping. Way of coping, right?
this is their way of coping, but in
Yeah.
actuality the behaviors themselves are unwanted, right?
Mm.
Which is the name of the book. And so deprivation is like let's say, if I'm working all day, I'll try and explain these in examples. If I'm working all day and I know that I have meetings like all throughout the day, right? I'm just not going to eat. I'm going to
Mm.
deprive myself of food. I'm going to deprive myself of food. I'm going to deprive myself of rest, right? I'm not going to allow myself the things that my body and my mind and my heart needs for me to continue to operate at a functional capacity, right? That's deprivation. That can also play out in community, right?
Mm.
Where if you feel shame, and we had kind of talked about this a little bit earlier when we were talking about singles, or we were talking about people who are, grieving from loss in relationships or divorce. Um, people may deprive themselves of community, right? They may actually
Yeah.
receive invitations to go and be with people around the holidays so that they don't have to be alone. But instead, what they tell themselves is, no, I actually don't want to. I don't want to go because
Right.
whatever the case may be. And the thing with that is it's tricky because your feeling that I don't want to go might be a legitimate feeling. You may
Right.
have a legitimate feeling that says I don't want to go. You may even have legitimate reasons that are attached to I don't want to go, right? But the effect of that is you are depriving yourself of human interaction. You're depriving yourself of an opportunity to be seen, known, understood, appreciated, valued, all of those things that you've lost, right?
Right.
In some way, shape, or form as a result of this, relationship dissolving or what have you.
Yeah.
So
And I
that's one.
can see a
Mhm.
lot of people doing that, and I think that has tended to be my tendency. I will go into hibernation.
Mm. Mhm. Oh, I do
It's not
that
that
too.
yeah, I go into hibernation. It's not that I don't want to be around people, but I just I just feel like, look, I just don't want to be bothered. So I will hibernate. That
Uh-huh.
that is a natural tendency of me to just
For
be
sure.
to myself. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
And what's the
So,
fourth one?
uh-huh. Well, that was only one.
That was just one. Okay.
That was just one. Are we in a
Go
time
ahead.
constraint?
No,
Let
no,
me know.
no.
Let me
Go
know.
ahead. This is
Okay,
good
okay.
conversation because I want
Okay,
people to.
okay.
This is an important topic for
Okay.
people, and I wanted to do this topic because it is, like I said, I feel it and sense it. We have a lot of people who are going through, and we
Uh-huh.
don't talk about it enough, particularly in
Yeah.
our community. We just don't.
Right.
So continue.
Right. Okay, okay. So we have dissociation, right? Now
Yeah.
dissociation might be that might be like your binge, your Netflix binge, your social media binge, your mindless scroll, right? Dissociation is essentially like distracting yourself from
Mm,
whatever is the task at hand or whatever is the feeling at hand by like this like inundation of just like sensory experiences, right? So it's just like I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna watch a whole thing. I'm gonna watch like a whole thing of like Rick and Morty or whatever show
right.
that people want to watch. Like I'm just gonna watch like the whole thing, all the seasons through, right? And perhaps that's the way that you want to spend your vacation. No shade, right? I'm not talking
Right.
about
Right.
no shade. Maybe that's the way that you want to spend your vacation. But if you know that there are things that you have to do, if you know that
Mm,
there are things that you have to do, if you know that there are expectations that you have to meet, if you know that there are people that are depending on you, and instead of facing whatever it is that is serving as a barrier to you doing the thing that needs to get done, that in many times you've probably already made a commitment to do, then you're in active dissociation.
mm,
You're kind of like your mind, you're becoming mindless, like literally mind hyphen less, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Dysregulation is it kind of goes with deprivation and dissociation because it's you getting into a space where you're not able to regulate yourself anymore. So this might happen if you like people who are sleep deprived,
Mm,
can often become emotionally dysregulated because sleep is a necessary part of restoring ourselves, repairing ourselves, right? If we are depriving ourselves of sleep, or we're depriving ourselves of appropriate nutrition, or we're depriving ourselves of sunlight, we're depriving ourselves of human contact, right? We can very easily become dysregulated, which means that when we're faced with stress, our the likelihood that we're going to become overwhelmed and act out in some way that we don't want to act out, or just have a breakdown, right, of
right.
some sort, it becomes that probability becomes heightened, right? And dysregulation, I think, is, and all of these are really tied to degradation, really, which is like treating yourself or treating other people in a less than humane way, like
Mm,
literally dehumanizing or objectifying people or ourselves in the various ways that we can do, and that people often do, right? Because we don't have that same level of we don't have like the requisite amount of compassion and understanding for ourselves, and because we can't extend it to ourselves, we don't know how to extend that to other people, right?
yeah.
So if you're experiencing any of these things and you're recognizing that there's a pattern of this, then it may be time, or someone else are near you that that cares about you, that knows you, starts to recognize that this may be you. Some of these things may be you. Perhaps it's time to consider looking for a therapist to help you with that.
Yeah. What about our men? Because I mean, I think hearing about Twitch, I think another topic that has come up,
Yeah.
and the statistic that I just mentioned, um, men tend to deal with depression in a very different way. Matter of fact, I think one of the things that I've heard is a lot of times they hold it in, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of different things behind that, right?
Yeah.
So talk about that. Talk about that a little bit, and what would be your advice to men out there in terms of just dealing with the hard stuff and dealing with this state of depression, in this state of depression, what advice would you give specifically to men?
The spaces that men are uniquely called to within relationships, within the family, within community, within the workplace, they require us to be emotionally whole and aware and stable and capable and adaptive. And if we are not able to confront our own stuff and work through our own stuff, then we are not only doing a disservice to ourselves, but we are doing a disservice to the people who rely on us and depend on us and look up to us, right? Our spouses and our friends and our families, and our children, right? Our employees and our employers. We're not doing anybody any disservice by pretending that the things that hurt don't hurt. We're not stronger by stuffing all of our pain and all of our sorrow and drinking it away or sexing it away or whatever, fill in the blank. That doesn't make you more of a man, regardless of whatever, messages that society may push, right? To the contrary. All that they tend to do is fragment us, right? And break us down and make us less than we are supposed to be, that we are made to be, that we have potential to be. And it's interesting because I've had a lot of conversations specifically about this topic with other men in group spaces, with other men in group spaces, with other women, in my own therapy. I've had it with my own father, right? One of the things that I had to recognize, particularly with my father, and I learned this not only through all of those other relationships, but also with talking to my sister, and sort of like doing a re-remembering of certain aspects of our childhood that were just they were not accessible to me for whatever reason, but they were accessible to her, right? And being willing to have that vulnerable conversation with my dad and make him uncomfortable, because he can take it, make him uncomfortable, right? But what I recognized, and this was very profound, is that again, it comes down to modeling, right? At some point, every adult was a child. And if we did not, as children, get the things that we needed to develop, right, in safe and well-rounded and holistic and secure ways, then eventually, at some point in life, we're going to be confronted with opportunities or trials that require us to do that work, right? To come back into an understanding of ourselves and who we actually are. And I recognize that when it comes to modeling relationships for men, if men are absent in all of these different spaces, or if men have not themselves done their work, right, in all of these different spaces, in all of those ways that I mentioned before, then all it does is inform the next generation regarding what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, which is usually, to take the shortcut, to objectify, to shirk responsibility, to look for the easy way out, to fill in the blank. And I don't say this to kind of like come down on men as if I am on high. I say this to be honest with men, as a man, first and foremost, who has gone through the hard work, that is reconciling the wake of damage and destruction that I left because of the fact that I was unwilling at earlier points in my life to face these things that really needed to get faced, right? And so, I mean, at this point, in the behavioral health space, we really are at an inflection point where we have the opportunity and we have the means now, and we have growing awareness, particularly within the Black community, that therapy is not a dirty word, and that taking care of your mind, right, is health. You know, healthcare is like mental health care is healthcare, you know,
Yes. Yes.
and your mind is connected to your body in a very intrinsic kind of way, you know. If you have stuff that's going on that you are stuffing, right, emotionally, your body is holding on to all of those things,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? Your body is holding on to those things. You have to come to a point where you're willing and you're able to face it. You need to be looking to get yourself to a place where you can start to face it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, I mean, I'm thinking about someone right now. But in terms of just, acknowledging that you're hurt, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then be willing to take the step to get some assistance is
Yeah.
important, right? Because very rarely what I find, and whether you're dealing with this or just anything, anything around life in general, um, sometimes you need to seek professional help, and it's
Mhm.
okay. And I think we have to make sure that we all recognize it is okay to seek help. You could pray about it
Mhm.
as well, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
nothing wrong with some good old-fashioned prayer about it, but also be willing to get some professional help, and there's professional help out there,
Yeah.
right, to help you through this.
And let me say that and I'm glad that you mentioned prayer, because I want to speak to that for my folks that do go to church, because I go to church. All right. I go to church. I believe in the Lord. I believe in Christ as my savior. I integrate that actively into my practice of therapy. Okay.
Mm,
What I have found, my understanding of prayer and what I have found is that when we pray for things, God is not a genie, right? When we pray for things, God is a co-collaborator, right? He's going to
mm,
provide us with opportunities to do the hard work to experience the blessing that He's already given us, right?
yes,
And I think that
yes,
a lot of people have been sort of like indoctrinated into a religion that is like I'm gonna put it all on God, and I'm not going to do anything,
yes,
right?
yes,
because
yes,
because i because I'm hurt, because of the ways that I've been hurt, right? Because of the ways that I've trusted before and my trust has been broken. I'm not going to put anything out there anymore. I'm going to do the bare minimum, and I'm going to pray really hard, and that way it's either going to be all on God when it goes right, or it's going to be all on God when it goes wrong, but it ain't going to be
mm,
on me. And that's not
mm,
the way Michelle's not felt that, and it's not going to be on me. But that's
right,
not who we've, when I was speaking a moment ago about, men, right? And the unique way that men have been crafted in the image of God. Not to say that women have not been crafted as image bearers of God either, but men have a role. Like there's a role for us in the family. There's a role for us in community. There's something out there that is specifically for us that we do need to awaken and move into, and that's going to require hard work. And so if
yeah,
you have people praying for you, excellent, right? Those prayers should be the momentum, right? They should be kind of like the wind in your sails, so to speak, that now enable you to do the work that only you can do.
yes, yes. You said a whole lot there, and in my head, I'm already thinking about an upcoming real
And I'll come
conversation.
episode.
Yeah, I'm like, "Ooh-wee,
We gotta do one at a
look."
time. We gotta do one at a time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure, but I thank you for
Yeah.
this. Like I said, this, um, to me, I switched up topics, recognizing that this is the time of year where they tend to fall into a depressive state, could fall into a depressive state,
Yeah.
and it's real. Holiday blues is real. Seasonal depression is real, right? They're known states,
Hmm.
and want to make sure people are taking care of themselves during this time
Yeah.
of year, and don't get so caught up in the hype of what you're seeing on social media. A lot of times what you see is not real, right? It's what people
Hmm.
want you to see. And
Right.
that's the thing we have to remember as well.
Yeah.
And what I will say, as friends, reach out to people reach out to your single people, y'all. Reach out. They want to hear from you. We want to hear from you guys. And invite them out. If you have a friend who's by themselves this holiday season, invite them out. And you never know, you be a blessing to someone in disguise, and you may not even know that. So but I appreciate you. You are definitely now on my list of therapists to join me in conversations, and tell people how they can reach out to you, Nathaniel, if they want to connect with you.
Yeah, people can reach out to me on LinkedIn starting in I think January or February of next year. I'm going through an insurance credentialing process right now with a site called Headway.
Okay.
Headway is a tech startup that is based in New York City that helps to connect people who are looking for therapy with therapists who are willing and able to accept insurance. So
Okay.
I've used Headway in order to find my therapist. I've had a very good experience. It's seamless. And so now I will be using Headway now, at least at the start of my own private practice work. So if people are looking to work with me, they'll be able to find me on Headway. Otherwise, they can find me on LinkedIn. They can also find me on IG, though I'm not very active on IG. I try to stay away from the
I know it's a
social
lot to
media.
try to keep it. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
But
lot to deal with. Go ahead.
my IG is _Nate Cultivates. That's _Nate Cultivates.
Yeah. And I will
Yeah.
place your information underneath this post of the video.
Yeah.
I will also say, you guys, if you find yourself in a crisis, there's a number, you dial 988. That is a crisis number that you can dial. It's just put in place. I want to say they changed the 800 number this year, but I will make sure I post that as well. Just know you do not have to be alone. Call and get someone some assistance. I will leave that information. And we'll leave some information for some therapist links that you can go to if you want to search for a therapist in your area. Because I know sometimes people want to meet with someone live, and there are times people don't mind doing the video chats. So, but thank you, Nathaniel, for joining me. And I'm going to put you in the studio real quick while I close out. And yeah, I really do hope this bless someone out there. Like I said, this could be a difficult time for many, and hope that this is a blessing to someone. I'm going to take January off to deal with some family stuff, but you will see me in February. Try to kick off the year with some topics that I hope will motivate you for the rest of this year to just set yourself up for success. So until then, you all, for those of you who are with family, have a blessed holiday season. And if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me via email, mbiggs.mybest@gmail.com. And if you want to have a free consultation about anything, I'm a career coach, you guys, career executive coach, life coach. I do offer a complimentary consultation. So if you just want to set up some time just to talk, and believe me, if I really feel like you need to be talking to a therapist, particularly around this topic, I have quite a few people in my circle you can reach out to about that. Okay. But have a blessed weekend and holiday, and hope to see you in the new year. Bye.
Bye.